Have you ever wondered why dirtbag attorneys and their clients so freely commit crimes in family court? Well, we all know the answer is corruption, but are there any tools to fight back against it? Of course there are. Unfortunately, those in power rarely use them. Tonight we're going to learn about one. It is the crime fraud exception. First, some disclaimers. I have a lot of liability insurance. I believe everything I'm saying is true. We have cameras in our courtrooms here in Nevada. We also have a lot of activist groups who will court watch and record proceedings in Nevada courts. Any dirtbag attorneys who have gotten the idea they will use the courts as a weapon, you've been warned. Okay, before we get into the specifics of the crime fraud exception, let me show you some closeout letters I got from the defunct and corrupt California Bar Association, in which they refused to investigate professional misconduct and criminal conduct by dirtbag attorney Tristan Ashelman. Okay, so here's a letter I got from the complaint review unit after I appealed a closeout of my complaint against Tristan Ashelman. This letter is dated August 22nd, 2022. It's important to note that this letter only appeared after I went to the California Board of Trustees for the Bar Association and complained about their refusal to investigate at a public hearing. Then all of a sudden, after a year of ignoring me, this letter was generated. We get down to page 2, and what they say here is, and as OTC noted, the issue you've raised needs to be addressed by the court. This is one of their other tactics where they put the investigative onus on me. I have to go do everything in the court. They, of course, never have to do anything. OTC is not a trier of fact and not a court of law, and clearly also not an investigative body. Here it says, as to your July 2021 complaint, OCTC stated it could not investigate whether a respondent advised his client to violate the law by advising his client to abduct your children, as his conversations with his client are protected by the attorney-client privilege. So that's one reference. We cannot out the writer of this letter because it's signed Sincerely Dirtbag Complaint Review Unit. But we'll do some public records requests and see if we can figure out who generated this letter. We do know, however, who wrote this letter. His name is Lawrence J. Del Cerro. And because I complained against a bar investigator, the special deputy trial counsel was assigned to investigate the bar investigator. Let's see if we can't quickly pull up his bar number. It's 104342. So he says in his closeout letter, concerning the allegation that Mr. Ashelman advised his client to violate the law, CRU observed that investigation into the issue would require him to assert the attorney-client privilege. Okay. Let him assert it. And then you do the next step, which is you pursue an order from a court under the crime fraud exception, because I clearly allege that he committed crimes and that he was hired to commit crimes. As noted here, abduct your children. Okay, for those of you fighting for your lives against dirtbag attorneys, I want to show you how useful ChatGPT is at doing legal research. There are also several pitfalls, though, so you have to be careful. I already knew what the crime fraud exception was, so I went into ChatGPT and I said, what California Supreme Court cases discuss the crime fraud exception? Here it gives me an answer. You can ask it to tell you more about those cases, but you're ultimately going to want to go read them for yourselves because ChatGPT makes a lot of mistakes. So here's an example. I said, where is the crime fraud exception in the California Code? I happen to know that it's in there. It tells me that it's a common law thing and not actually really in the code. Well, that's not true. So that's an example of a pitfall with ChatGPT. The evidence code is where you will find the privileges under Division 8 of the Evidence Code in California. Lawyer-client privilege, 956. There is no privilege under this article if the services of the lawyer were sought or obtained to enable or aid anyone to commit or plan to commit a crime or a fraud. If you hire an attorney to commit a crime, such as abducting children or relocating children without prior permission of a court or approval of the other parent, which is a felony in both states and federally, there is no lawyer-client privilege. I don't know where the crime fraud exception is in the federal code. If anybody does, please go ahead and add it to the comments and help everybody out. That's it for tonight. I hope you learned something interesting about dirtbag attorneys and the crime fraud exception.